Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources and the co-founder and editor-at-large of Corporate Board Member Magazine. We're here at the Corporate Board Member Annual Boardroom Summit, and we have a guest that's part of the activities here today that's going to join us to talk about, are you conducting board committee evaluations? And joining me is Mike Berthelot, who's a board member with the Del Monte Fresh Produce. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, TK. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you.
So on the show, we talked a lot about board evaluations, and you and I have talked about that in the past, and ensuring they're effective and et cetera. But we've probably spent no time on the show talking about the evaluating board committees. And certainly the audit committee has a responsibility to audit itself with an evaluation. But the recommendation is that all committees should do that. It's probably a good idea since most of the real work these days is done in the committees, so that's important. So when you look at evaluating a committee, what do you think is the best approach for that? Do you think it should be an annual event? Who do you think should conduct it? Should it be somebody from the outside, or is it okay to be in the inside? So give me your views on all those issues.
Sure. It starts with it depends. I mean, clearly there should be some form of board evaluation every year, even if it's only just how are we doing. You know, today most committees are done with a check the box that reminds me very much of the old day performance reviews, dresses nicely, shows up on time. It's pretty meaningless to moving the ball forward. But I do think that every year the committee should sit down and they should think about what they're charged to do, and then how do we think we did? What are the 2 or 3 pressing areas for us to spend more time on next year? And just self-correct. I think going beyond that on an annual basis is a little much. I think that periodically a deep dive third-party evaluation, almost an audit, can be very worthwhile. And something like that, I would suggest, would go all the way back to the committee's charter, because that's the document that tells you what you're supposed to do. And you start with that and you work through, and the test that I use is I look at the minutes for the year and I compare them to the charter. Is everything in your charter noted in the minutes as having been done? Because if it wasn't, you didn't do your job. And should you get into litigation and plaintiff's counsel says, well, if you didn't do that, what else were you supposed to do that you didn't do? So it opens up that whole Pandora's box of unknown unknowns. So I think having a third party come in and do the evaluation, as well as involving interviews with the individual committee members, maybe with some of the people from management who are involved with the committee. For instance, the audit committee, you're going to work closely with certainly the CFO, the head accountant, maybe people in tax, the general counsel's office.
Internal auditor.
Internal auditor. How do you think the committee is doing? You know, you may think that they're a bunch of bozos, but you may also think they're really doing a good job. They help me do my job better. And that's important for the committee to hear, because as somebody said at one of the sessions this morning, directors want feedback on what kind of contribution they're making to the company. And that's how they get it.
So one of the big values that I would see would be the leadership of the committees, you know, and getting confirmation that you have the right people in the right slots, because again, when you chair a committee, you accept a huge amount of responsibility, okay? And again, the work that's done there. So the evaluation at least gives you a little bit of that check and balance to have the opportunity to say that the other committee members feel that, you know, that committee is being led like it should be led, and the type of effort is being given by that chairman that you would expect. So,
well, I think that one of the things that I do when I do third-party evaluations is I have two of my favorite questions that are really telling, and they're a hypothetical. This is all hypothetical. And I will say, assume that the SEC has just passed a new rule that limits the number of people who can be on your board. You currently have 7, but now you can only have 5. Who will be the 2 people, the 2 directors, for whatever reason? It may be skill sets, it may be they're crotchety, they don't get along well, but who would be the 2 people who you would suggest be the 2 who get kicked off the island? But then I have another question that goes with it. You have 7 people on your board. The SEC has now passed a rule that says you have to have 9. What 2 people, describe them, would you recruit to your board, your committee, to add value? What's their skill sets? What are their demographics? What do you really think it would add? And when you talk to a whole bunch of directors, if they all name the same 2 people, it's going to be easy.
yeah.
You clearly have some kind of a problem. But if they all name different people, then it's okay, there's different reasons for that. The skill sets that are missing and who these new candidates will be really makes people start thinking about director succession planning.
Well, that would be really a peer-to-peer ranking system in the end that, and I'm not sure if your board needs refreshment. That's certainly a way to find out if, you know, who would be the first people that should be refreshed.
Yeah, and you know, one of the statistics that was in one of the sessions here this morning was that I believe 47% of all the directors that PwC surveyed said that they felt at least one of their board members should be replaced, and 20% said 2 or more. So this little exercise, and you can only do this with a third party who has to filter everything before it gets back to anybody. But I've done it a couple of times, and it has been amazingly productive.
So because you're good at this board evaluation stuff, I can put you in these hypothetical situations. So I'm going to give you another hypothetical. So let's assume that there is consensus after somebody does the evaluation that the chairman needs to be replaced. We have the wrong person in that spot. So you've been chairman of the board previously. So what's your view on how that event should be handled, and whose responsibility is it?
Are we talking about removing a committee chairman or the chairman?
We're talking about a committee chair.
Okay.
You're the chairman of the board.
Okay, I'm the chairman of the board. So I'm going to delegate this because usually the committee chairs are either, there's 2 ways it'll happen. Sometimes they're actually elected by the committee members, which makes it a difficult dynamic to unvote someone. Other times the governance committee appoints the committee members and the chair with the strong influence of the chairman. So in the illustration where it's the governance committee, which is probably the more frequent situation, the chair of the governance committee would be the person, because they hired the person, they should be the person who is going to have that difficult conversation.
Truth is probably, I mean, there is no right or wrong way. you know, sometimes I'm guessing you're absolutely right. It would be the head of the Nom-Gov committee. Sometimes it might be the chairman of the board. Sometimes it might be the CEO. You know, even though that's the certain organizations, the CEO still makes calls like that.
Yeah, it would be, the CEO would have to do it very indirectly because the rest of the board members would be very upset to have the CEO's hand involved in removing a board member.
Yeah.
The CEO would have to go to the chairman, go to the committee, the
Yeah.
governance committee, and ask for, say, I can't work with this person, you people need to handle this.
And I see it more where this has been identified and no director wants to do it.
Right.
And they say, let's let the CEO perform this function.
That I would say that the chairman of the board in that situation, if the governance committee doesn't want to do it, that the chairman of the board has to, this is why you get paid the extra stipend. You're not here to make friends, you're going to be as respectful as you can. You're going to try to work it out. Maybe the person just needs to get off that committee and can be valuable somewhere else. Maybe they have to leave the board completely. So there's maybe 2 steps in there. But my feeling would be that the chairman of the board would be the person who would do it before going to the CEO, although the CEO's input would be necessary before the chair did that, because you just don't want to cause too much friction.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be good communication all over the place for any of that. But, well, listen, Michael, thank you for letting me put you in these precarious situations, but they're all real situations that occur in boards across the country. And we want to stress the importance of evaluating board committees to make sure that they're evaluated just like the full board would be. So thank you for taking the time. And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take a look at another critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Diligent, PwC, Center for Audit Quality, the Conference Board, and Corporate Board Member. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.